The Wind and Truth cover by the legendary artist Michael Whelan is finally here. Both the US and UK covers are absolutely stunning and have captured such an ominous and epic tone as we close the first arc of the Stormlight Archive. As anticipation for the full release of Wind and Truth builds, I believe it's time to over-analyze this image to look for any signs of foreshadowing and Easter eggs. The Whelan Stormlight covers have varied in the sense that some have been representative of specific scenes in the novels, whilst others are more abstract and aim to capture a feeling. The Way of Kings is very much an example of the latter, two anonymous shard bearers acknowledging one another across the chasms of the Shattered Plains. Conversely, there is Oathbringer, depicting Yasna at the Battle of Thalem Field, serving as almost a snapshot of her actions that day. Yasna spun, a shard blade forming in her gloved safe hand. The sword vanished as she slapped her hand into the wall of a building behind her, and that wall puffed away into smoke, causing the roof to crash down. She swept her hand upward and the air coalesced into stone, forming steps that she took, barely breaking her stride, to climb to the rooftop of the next building. Words of Radiance and Rhythm of War both fall into a similar category, where it's representative of scenes from the book, though not as literal as Oathbringer. With all this being said, it begs the question, where does Wind and Truth fit in these categories? Will this be a pivotal moment that we'll be reading in a few months, or will it simply be representative of Dalinar's struggle as we lead up to the Battle of Champions? As I look at the artwork, I can't help but get the feeling that we'll be seeing this moment in the book itself. Dalinar with the iconic Way of Kings leatherbound, facing an unknown threat as the sun sets above Urithiru. For me, it all comes back to the iconic quote all the way back in our version of the Way of Kings. Unite them. The sun approaches the horizon. The Everstorm comes. The true desolation. The night of sorrows. You must prepare. This may be that very moment, finally coming to fruition. We clearly have the Everstorm before us. The sun is definitely approaching the horizon, although if you've followed the channel for any length of time, you'll know I believe that might be the Shadesmar sun. And finally, there has been significant foreshadowing that Roshar and Stormlight itself are at great risk as we head into this book. So, we've reached what I'd call a fairly reasonable analysis, looking at previous covers to gauge what we can from a beautiful new art piece. I believe now it's time to start digging a little deeper and perhaps reaching a little further than the average grounded Stormlight fan. Okay, these guys down here have been bothering me ever since the cover was released. At first glance, it's clear they are a spren of some kind, and this cheeky little M here is Michael Whelan's signature, which can be spotted across all the Stormlight covers. But what's curious to me is how these spren are contained only on this specific rock, and the way it's drawn makes it appear as if they are within the rock itself. Now, we know that this is Szeth's book, and there has been significant foreshadowing about voices and spirits within the stones on Roshar. A particularly telling quote from a Szeth interlude in The Way of Kings states, "Though his murders and sins would damn him, at least his soul would be given to the stones upon his death. He would continue to exist." Reread any of the books and you'll find countless quotes alluding to spirits within the stones, and this artistic choice seems to be fairly telling of what we might see in Wind and Truth. The next most notable part of this cover could either be analogous to Dalinar's journey, or perhaps a literal event that occurs right before our very eyes. In The Way of Kings, Dalinar has a distinctly different vision where he is pulled into what I believe is the spiritual realm. This is where he is told, "Unite them. The sun approaches the horizon. The Everstorm comes. The true desolation. The night of sorrows. You must prepare." From this initial plane of endless rock and smoke, Dalinar is shown Kholinar being shattered into dust by a new type of storm, a storm that we have yet to see so far in the series. As Tanavast continues to relay his message in the vision, Dalinar notices that the sun seems to be dimming out. To me, this is captured wonderfully within the Wind and Truth cover. Dalinar's race against time before the looming threat that could destroy Roshar as we know it. Perhaps we will finally see this wave of destruction that Tanavast was so afraid of. Lastly, what I find to be a nice detail is how we see 16 gemstones in full. Obviously there are more that cannot be seen, but I can't help but think this is an intentional nod to the 16 shards of Adonalsium. If you really want to don your tinfoil hat, it may be a clue that new vessels could ascend in this, the final book of Stormlight Era 1.